Friday night felt heavier than any storm I'd ever driven through. Rain smeared the windshield in slow streaks, streetlights blurring into trembling gold lines as I pulled away from my ex-wife's house. My 7-year-old daughter Lily sat silently in the passenger seat, too small, too still, too broken for a child who should have been singing along to cartoons. Hi everyone, my name is Evan Carter. I'm the man who used to believe that love could survive anything, even divorce. Tonight that belief cracked. Halfway home Lily's breathing changed. At first it was soft, then uneven. Then she suddenly burst into desperate sobs that filled the entire car. I pulled over immediately, heart pounding. I unbuckled my seatbelt and wrapped her in my arms. "What's wrong, my love?" I whispered, voice shaking despite my effort to stay calm. Between gasps she cried, "Daddy." Mom makes me call her new boyfriend, Dad. If I say your name she hits me. She says you're not my dad anymore. The steering wheel trembled under my hands. My chest felt like it was splitting open. I held her tighter, not possessively but protectively, like a father who finally sees the truth he ignored too long. "Listen to me," I said quietly, pressing my forehead to hers. "This will never happen again." She looked at me with swollen eyes, searching for safety in my face. In that moment something inside me hardened. Not into anger, but into resolve. I sat her gently back in her seat, wiped her tears and picked up my phone. One call. Come. Short. Precise. "Start the process tonight," I said. On the other end my lawyer didn't ask why. He already understood. As I pulled back onto the road, I glanced at my daughter in the mirror. I wasn't just driving her home. I was driving toward a battle my ex didn't see coming, and when it arrived, they would be the ones begging at my door. The next morning I sat across from my lawyer in his office. No small talk. Just action. "I want emergency custody. Today," I said. He blinked once, then nodded. I handed him Lily's school drawings, crumpled papers with shaky stick figures and tears drawn falling from wide eyes. Beside them were notes I'd quietly collected over months, behavior changes, bruises from the playground, sudden fear of bedtime. I'd seen it. I just didn't want to believe it. I believed it now. "I'll get the paperwork ready," he said. While he worked, I picked up Lily from school. She ran into my arms like she'd been holding her breath all day. We went to the park. I let her play. I sat on the bench, phone in hand, watching but not recording her. I was watching her mother's house through the hidden cameras I had installed. A legal precaution. Something I'd quietly done after noticing things felt off. That evening, while Lily was safe with me, the footage showed her mother and her new boyfriend throwing a party. Loud music. Alcohol. Laughing. No sign of dinner. No sign of concern. Then the boyfriend picked up Lily's backpack and tossed it aside like garbage. A bottle spilled over her clothes. They laughed. I sent the footage to my lawyer. Time-stamped. Cling. No emotion, just fact. That night, CPS got involved. I sat with Lily as she fell asleep, holding her tiny hand in mine. My phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "What did you do?" "They're at my door." I didn't respond, because I knew what was coming. Not revenge. Just truth, delivered by law, documented by silence, and written in the ink of a father's patience finally run dry. She thought I'd be too soft, too slow, too forgiving. But some fathers, they don't break. They wait. They build. And when they strike, it's legal, surgical, and final. The knock came at 7:18 a.m. Not loud. Not theatrical. Just firm enough to say, "We are not leaving." I was already awake, sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of black coffee that had gone cold. Lily was still asleep in the guest room, curled around her favorite blanket like it was a lifeline. Two social workers stood on my porch, badges visible, expressions calm but serious. Behind them, a police cruiser idled at the curb. They didn't speak to accuse me. They spoke to listen. I invited them in. I showed them Lily's room, clean, safe, filled with books and art supplies and the nightlight she refused to sleep without. I showed them her school reports, her pediatric records, my visitation logs, every weekend I had kept meticulously documented. Then I played the footage. No commentary. No rage. Just video, the backpack thrown aside, the spilled drink, the laughter, the negligence. One of them exhaled slowly. The other typed without looking up. By noon I was in family court. Emergency hearing. Small room. Heavy air. My ex sat across from me, eyes red, lips trembling, but not from guilt. From fear of losing control. Her lawyer tried to spin it. Tried to make me look vindictive. The judge didn't buy it. At 2:07 p.m., he granted temporary full custody to me pending investigation. Lily would stay with her father, where she was safe. When I told Lily that night, she didn't cheer. She just wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered, "You kept your promise." I held her tighter than I ever had. But this wasn't over. Because my ex didn't come begging yet. She came fighting. And she thought money, image, and manipulation would save her. She didn't know I had more than footage. I had time, patience, and a father's memory of every tear his child shed. And tomorrow morning, she would learn what happens when you mistake silence for weakness. Say part 4 when you're ready. It was Saturday. Lily and I were baking muffins. Her giggles filled the kitchen like sunlight, and for the first time in weeks I felt peace. That's when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find my ex's new husband standing there, red-eyed, jaw clenched, tie loosened like he had rushed over from a battlefield. Behind him, my ex-wife stood with a carefully constructed look of remorse. I'd seen better acting from Lily's school plays. "We need to talk," she said, voice tight. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "Now you want to talk?" She glanced at her husband. He couldn't meet my eyes. "It was a mistake," she murmured, making her call him Dad. That wasn't right. My stare didn't budge. I waited. Her husband sighed. "Look, I didn't know what was happening until last week. I thought she was happy here." "She's 7, I said calmly. "She's not your pawn. She's not your trophy. And she's not your victim. We want to make things right," my ex offered weakly. "Maybe split custody again? Ease into it." That's when I handed her the envelope. It wasn't dramatic. Just paperwork. Court-ordered supervised visitation. Weekly psychological evaluations. Restraining clauses. Conditions for re-entry into Lily's life, if ever. Her hand trembled. "You're serious?" She cried herself to sleep for months. "I'm done being nice." "Please," she whispered. I leaned in just enough for her to hear me. "You broke her spirit. I rebuilt it. You'll never get to break it again." I turned, stepped back into the house and locked the door. Inside, Lily was setting the table. Was it someone bad again? I smiled gently. Not anymore. But this wasn't the ending. Because while my ex-wife begged at my door, someone else, someone far more dangerous, was watching from the street. Her mother. And she was already planning the next move. For her, this wasn't about Lily. It was about control. The following week was strangely quiet. Too quiet. Lily settled into our new routine. Morning walks to school, bedtime stories with the same 3 plush toys arranged in perfect formation. She smiled more. Laughed freely. And every night before bed she whispered, "You're my real daddy." But I didn't let my guard down. Because I knew her grandmother. Margaret Jensen was the kind of woman who didn't lose. Former school principal. 5 honorary community awards. A perfect public image. Backed by iron control behind the scenes. And just like I feared, it began with a knock at Lily's school. She showed up with a clipboard, a concerned expression, and a fake smile. Told the principal there had been concerns raised about Lily's current environment. Even claimed I'd been emotionally unstable since the divorce. Luckily, the school called me immediately. I arrived mid-meeting, suit still half-buttoned, breath short. The second Margaret saw me, her mask slipped just enough. The contempt flickered, brief but unmistakable. "I'm here as a concerned grandmother," she said smoothly. "We've all seen the signs. You're overwhelmed, James." I took a step forward, opened my phone, and played the recording. It was Lily, crying on the night I picked her up. Her voice trembling as she whispered, "Grandma says if I talk about you, I'm lying. She says I have to forget you." The room fell silent. Even the principal leaned back, face shifting. Margaret stood slowly, venom now bleeding through her smile. "You recorded her?" "No," I said calmly. "She recorded herself. Kids are smart." She left the school humiliated. But I knew Margaret. This was just her opening act. That evening, an anonymous call was made to Child Protective Services. And just like that, my name was flagged. It was no longer just about the divorce. It was war. And I had one shot to end it, not for me, but for Lily. CPS showed up on a Wednesday morning. I was brushing Lily's hair when the knock came. 2 agents. Stern faces. Clipboard. "We received a report of emotional instability and possible neglect," one of them said. Lily immediately reached for my hand. I didn't argue. I didn't panic. I just nodded and said, "Come in." They walked through every room of our small townhouse. Inspected the fridge, checked for bruises, asked Lily routine questions. She was calm, smarter than I'd ever realized. She told them about our routines, about her favorite story at night, even about the pancakes I always burn on Saturdays. After an hour, one agent sat down and glanced at me. "Look, James, between us, we've seen real cases. This doesn't feel like one. But we have to file the visit." I nodded. "Do what you need to do." I handed him a sealed envelope as they stood up to leave. Inside, legal documents. Everything I'd been quietly preparing: therapy reports, custody logs, behavioral assessments from Lily's school, and most damning, a signed statement from Lily's pediatrician noting multiple bruises inconsistent with childhood accidents, dated 3 months prior from her time with her mother. The agent paused. His partner took the envelope. Their eyes locked, silent understanding. "We'll be in touch," the second one said. That night I received a call from CPS. They were opening an official investigation, not against me but against my ex and her mother. And the next day, I filed for full custody. Temporary emergency custody was granted within 72 hours. But that wasn't the end. Because Margaret had money. And influence. And I knew she was going to use every ounce of it to get Lily back. Not because she loved her, but because she hated losing. So I made one final move. I picked up the phone and called someone she'd never expect. The man who answered the phone wasn't a lawyer. Wasn't a detective. He was my father-in-law. Margaret's dad. We'd barely spoken since the divorce, but I knew one thing. He loved Lily more than he hated me. And he despised how his daughter lived her life, especially what she'd become. I laid it out plainly. "I'm not asking you to take my side," I said. "I'm asking you to protect your granddaughter." He didn't speak for a moment. Then, "What do you need?" "I need the truth. About what Margaret's done. About how she was raised. Anything that can help prove Lily's not safe in that house." He exhaled slowly. "You'll have it by tonight." He delivered more than I expected. By midnight, I had notarized letters from former nannies. Sworn statements from family friends. Photos. Voicemails. Even a transcript from a rehab stint Margaret had hidden, where she'd admitted to losing control around her daughter. All of it sent directly to my attorney. And the next morning, the court scheduled a hearing, an emergency revocation of visitation rights. Margaret showed up with 3 lawyers and a smug expression. I came alone, holding Lily's hand. When the judge laid out the evidence, her face changed. From confidence to panic. She tried to interrupt, but the judge raised a hand. "Sit down, Miss Franklin. This court has heard enough." He turned to me. "Mr. Callahan, until this case is fully resolved, you are granted full protective custody of your daughter. Any attempt by the mother to approach or interfere will result in immediate legal action." Lily squeezed my hand. Margaret didn't speak. She just stood frozen, lips parted, eyes wide. I leaned toward her on my way out and whispered, "No one takes her from me again. Say part 8 when you're ready." I didn't celebrate. No victory dance. No calls to friends. No social media posts. I just sat with Lily on the front porch that night as she held a mug of warm cocoa in her little hands. Her eyes were clearer now. Less fear. More trust. "Do I still have to see her?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "Not unless you want to. And even then, only if the court says it's safe." She leaned into me. "I don't want to." I kissed the top of her head. The next day the begging began. First it was Margaret. She showed up at the door, no lawyers this time, just fake tears and trembling hands. "I wasn't well," she said. "I made mistakes. But I can change. Please, let me see her." I looked her in the eyes. "You told her I wasn't her father. You struck her when she said my name. And now, when the consequences arrive, you want mercy? She's my daughter." "No," I interrupted calmly. "She was your daughter. You gave up that right the moment you put your ego above her heart." I closed the door. Then her boyfriend came. Arrogant. Smug. Until I handed him a printed copy of the restraining order. His face turned white. "You're banned from this property. One step over that line and police will be here before you can blink." He stepped back. Margaret's own family didn't support her. Her father released a public statement. "I stand with my granddaughter. Abuse of any form is never acceptable." The court later ruled for permanent custody. Margaret lost all rights. I moved Lily to a new school. Enrolled her in art therapy. And slowly she bloomed, like the daughter I always knew was in there just waiting to feel safe. I didn't seek revenge. I just protected my child. And that's what truly ended their power.